You ready, Brian?
One more second while I
Okay,
look
that's
at
fine.
the web page. All right, you can call the meeting to order.
All right, Melissa, will you call the meeting order?
All right. Mayor Mark Sukup.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins.
Here.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson.
Here.
Councilmember Lisa Lake.
Here.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Here.
Great. Wes, do we have any amendments to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. Do we have any public comments, Melissa? Melissa?
Ryan, can you help me with that? I'm not sure.
Brian?
I can, yes. I have everybody who I see in the window is to speak on an agenda item.
Okay.
I don't think we have any general public comment. If there's anybody who would like to have general public comment, would you mind raising your hand? In the meeting, not your actual hand.
A lot of IT explaining here, Brian.
Yep. It's a brave new world.
Did anybody raise their
I don't
hand?
see anybody, so I think we're good to go.
All right, great. So no public comment. Consent agenda payables. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I recuse myself from this consent agenda. Consent agenda other, which includes our town council meeting on November 10th, special meeting on November 12th, special meeting on November 13th, and special meeting on November 24th. Do I have a motion to approve that consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, carries unanimously. Mayor and council reports. I don't have a report. Does anybody else have a report to give? Nope, looks like no. Business, a resolution approving Fisher Farm subdivision. Wes, do you want to take over?
Yes, with some capable help from Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
Mayor and council, pursuant to some discussions we've had today, we're still looking for a drainage report. So staff would respectfully ask that you open the public hearing and then continue it to January the 12th to allow for the applicant to provide the drainage report that we're still looking for.
Awesome. Do you want to name the motion and then we'll have someone make it? Do you want to declare the motion, or what motion should we make here, Wes? I'm sorry.
If you don't mind just stating for the record that you're opening the public hearing, and then at
Okay.
that time that you'll entertain a motion to continue this item to January the 12th.
Okay, so I open the motion, a resolution approving Fisher Farm subdivision, first filing, final plat.
So the public hearing is now opened.
So public hearing's now open.
And then-
And I'd like a motion for continuing this at a, do we have the date yet, Wes?
Yes, January the 12th.
Continue this to the January 12th meeting. So do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All,
Thank you.
it's a 100% approval there. Saratoga Falls, a resolution approving Saratoga Falls third filing preliminary plat. I have to recuse myself from this, so I hand over the gavel to Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins.
Thank you, Mark. Let's go ahead and start the agenda item on Saratoga Falls. And we'll ask if there's somebody in the public that's going to speak to try to keep your speeches down to 3 minutes. We'll start off with staff giving a overview and a look at the project. Then we'll talk to the developer and go from there then with public. So Matt, are you going to take it?
I will. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to start this off with our usual what we've been starting to do is have the, I don't know if you can see that screen showing the where the process or the project is in the process. So this graphic we've been starting to see on a couple of applications now. It shows where this project is on the timeline, so to speak. So the Saratoga Falls third filing preliminary plat had underwent annexation and zoning a few years ago, had a sketch plan that was approved through Planning Commission and Town Council, and now we are at a preliminary plat stage with the final plat and building permit yet to come. So you'll see this as approvals happen, this will move along, and we'll just keep you apprised of where it is in the process. So with that though, I'll turn it back. I'm going to exit this screen share, and I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to go ahead and do the staff presentation.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Collins.
Close enough.
I have Planning Commission on my brain. I apologize. So let me now share my screen. All right. So this is, as you had mentioned, this is the Saratoga Falls preliminary plat third filing. Located here in the blue highlight. This is the easternmost side of the Saratoga Falls / Kitchell Lake subdivision at the northwest corner of County Road 3 and Prospect. They're north of Dead Man Lake, south of Kitchell Lake. This is a preliminary plat proposal for that area. It's zoned R2, single family residential. This preliminary plat proposal is for 250 single-family detached lots. That includes a future potential use of the Poudre School District Elementary School on a 16-acre site. The preliminary plat proposal meets the parks and open space requirement. They are providing pocket parks, community clubhouse and park, along with 43% open space. The plan includes a series of concrete and soft surface trails throughout the community, and it will tie into existing trails within the second filing. They are also proposing a future community trail, which is in compliance with the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails are known as the PROS plan. The gross density for this area is 1.41 dwelling units per acre. And then along with that, per section 6.6.5 of the land use code, all lots that back to open space will be eligible for the side yard setback be reduced from 7 feet to 5 feet. The minimum lot size is roughly 6,400 square feet. And then the max lot size is just over 36,000 square feet. Those are on kind of some of the rare lots down on the south east side next to Dead Man Lake, with the average lot size of approximately 8,000 square feet in the majority of the site. There was a neighborhood meeting required for this that was held on October 29th via Zoom with the existing residents of Saratoga Falls and Kitchell Lake. The purpose of that was to review the proposed plat with those in attendance and gather any feedback and concerns on the plan. Approximately 12 residents attended, and their concerns are noted in the observation report within your packet. And a recording of that Zoom meeting is available on the town's website. Planning Commission at their meeting on November 11th recommended approval of this preliminary plat with a by 4-0 vote to you as council, with one condition that's in there that the applicant will touch on a little bit more. It's kind of hard to see on this one. The condition is that the street located here, known as B1, be shifted about 20 feet to the west to allow for more buffering to Kitchell Lake. This is something the applicant brought up after noticing right before the Planning Commission hearing, so that's why they will go into a little bit more depth on that in their presentation. With that, the owner is Saratoga Falls LLC. The applicant is TV Group. And staff has reviewed this preliminary plat against the land use code, and it is in compliance with the approved sketch plan that came before you as a council a couple months ago, and it is also in conformance with code and technical criteria manual. With that, I will turn it over to Kristen Turner from the applicant team of TB Group to do her presentation.
Kevin, before we do that, we did receive a public comment
Thank you, Matt. Sorry.
that I circulated to the council from the adjacent property owner's attorney. And so you should have that, and it'll be entered into the record with the minutes as well. And I believe that the adjacent property owner's attorney is on tonight and may be speaking in the public comment section.
Very good.
All right.
So-
Kristen, if you're ready, go ahead and share screen.
Right, perfect, thank you. My name is Kristen Turner. I'm with TB Group, and we've been working on the planning on this for several years now. So just wanted to start by saying, thank you for hosting this additional meeting tonight. We certainly are appreciative of being able to present the project to you this evening. All right. So Kevin, can you confirm if you can see my screen? Okay, perfect. So really quickly, I think everybody has seen this site and is familiar with the location, but just wanted to give you the quick view in case there was any question. Prospect to the south, here's Main Street. First and second filing of Saratoga Falls is located here. And then this is the preliminary plat that we've added a little bit of color to. As you'll see, this is almost exactly identical to the sketch plan that was recently approved. I'm going to scroll forward one slide. What I did is it's hard to see all of the trails at that scale, so I just went ahead and put them back into that color that you're used to seeing, just so it's a little bit more visible. Anyways, this plan is 250 lots consistent with the approved sketch plan, 177 acres and 1.4 units to the acre, so very low density for this site. You can see in the center here, can you guys see the hand when I circle areas of the plan? Perfect.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I'm not sure what people can see, so I like to check. So you can see that the Poudre School District site is located centrally here, just as it was on the sketch plan. All of our lots that are shown are backing to green belts. We are showing 43% of this site as open space. As you can see from this plan, it still has great pedestrian connectivity. So we've got a mix of the community trail that runs right between second and third filing here. The red trails that you see are concrete trails, and the purple trails that you see are soft surface trails. So a good mix of different types of trails and different sizes of trails. We still are showing more than 4 miles of trail just in this third filing portion of the development. So that in combination with first filing and second filing is going to make for a pretty awesome trail system in this portion of town. So we're excited about that. You'll see that all the parks and pocket parks are still located in the same areas that were shown on the sketch plan as well. So as I said, it's almost essentially the same as the sketch plan with a couple of minor changes. So I just wanted to touch on those for you. One of the things that we heard from council members when we brought the sketch plan through was that there was a request for some additional buffer along Dead Man's Lake. So what we did was we actually shortened these lots here. And then this portion of the road, and I don't think we had a chance to touch on this when we brought sketch through, this portion of the road will remain, and it will provide access to all of the neighbors that live south of this property. But this portion of the road will be vacated when the new Prospect Road is built and will become open space and landscaped. So we are now providing an 80-foot buffer from the back of the lots to Dead Man's Lake. And as you can see, in addition to that, the actual water line sits a little bit farther out from there. And these are the biggest lots that we're showing on the plan. So we've got a lot of depth, which means that we're going to have a significant amount of distance from the back of lot to where the actual house would be located as well. So that was the first change that we made in response to the comments that we received from you. And then the second change that we made had to do with the frontage along Kitchell Lake here. So as you guys all know from the last meeting, there was a lot of conversation about setbacks and buffers and how this area would work. And ultimately what was decided at the sketch plat meeting was that the developer, Mr. Righeimer, agreed to provide an average of at least 50 feet all the way around this frontage. And so that is exactly what we have now done. So we made a couple of changes to the plan. We actually removed a couple of lots right here where the hand is circling, and we relocated them over here. So they are off of the lake frontage now, and it opens up a really nice direct connection from Kitchell Lake through the Pocket Park and over to this open space wetland area as well. So we thought that was a good change, and this was definitely an area that we heard a lot of conversation about, so we were happy to make that adjustment. Then over here, we went ahead and clipped a lot and pulled it in a little bit so that we had a bit more separation between Kitchell Lake and the tightest area in this portion of the site. So a couple of things to point out. There is actually no requirement in the land use code for what the buffer around Kitchell Lake needs to be. As we've been doing this design all the way through, we have always maintained a buffer because we think it's important to the project and important to the community. So we've been including one anyways. We do have a buffer that ranges from a little over 30 feet to more than 300 feet when you get into this area here. This line right here is always a good one to point out just to give you an idea, is about 175 feet from the edge here to this back of lot corner. So then in addition, I'm going to scroll to the next plan. So we did host a neighborhood meeting and we got some really good feedback from that neighborhood meeting. And one of the comments that we received was, hey, have you thought about shifting this road towards the west so that you pick up some additional space here? And during that meeting, we obviously didn't have the answer at the tip of our fingertips during that meeting. But we did go back and look at that immediately following the meeting to see if that was achievable, if we could relocate this road, get the engineering to work, make sure that we maintained all the required easements that we needed to, and we were able to make that shift. So we're pretty excited about that change. It was great feedback from the community, and we were glad we were able to implement it into this plan. So as Kevin mentioned, what we've done is the plat that is in front of you for approval tonight does not show this change yet. And we presented the idea of shifting this road to Kevin and Matt and the rest of the team. And what we talked about was that the plat needed to move forward in its current state because notices had already been sent out with that plat. But what we wanted to do was show you how this plan would work with that shift. And so we have been working on making this adjustment already. All of our plan sets are already in process, but they will become official at the final plat should this preliminary plat be approved tonight. So this plan that you're seeing right now does show you the shift of that road, which is why it will look slightly different than the plat that is in your packet right now. So we moved this road starting right here at Saratoga Parkway, all the way from here, and then it transitions back right about in this location. We shifted the entire road 20 feet to the west. And so that opened up an additional 20 feet all the way along this portion of the frontage as well. So you can see that it looks a little bit bigger than it was before. What I've done is I've gone through and I've pulled just some measurements in some of the biggest locations, some of the average locations, and a couple of the pinch points for you to be able to see. We're looking at about 62 feet here. These are running from back of lot measurements to the property line. And what I wanted to point out was just a few of the pinch points, because I know those are the largest concern for everyone, and some things to take into consideration. So one thing to note is that the property line is an invisible line. It is important because it's a property line, but it's also somewhat arbitrary in terms of what this buffer is. And so as you move along the frontage of this lake, we'll find that the actual water can be, sometimes it's right in line with the property line, and sometimes it's set back quite a bit more than that. So an example up here, we're about 51 feet from the back of lot to the property line, but we're actually a little bit over 69 feet from that same location, back of lot, to where the actual water line is. So even though you'll see some of these numbers and some of them will be a little bit lower to the property line, that doesn't necessarily mean that the buffer is really quite that tight there. This corner is a really good example. The property line is defined there because of some concrete structures that help to maintain water level for the Kitchell Lake. And so, you know, the property line is necessary because of that structure. So it's set at 31.3 feet there, but the actual dimension out to the water from that location is 87.9. So we've got a nice big buffer in that area with the shift of the road and clipping this lot back. You can see here, this is one of our largest areas. Again, the average in this area is about 75 feet. Another little pinch point here, we've got about 35 feet from the back of lot to the property line, but we actually have 41.8 feet to the water line. And I pulled another pinch point for you here. We've got 33.7 feet from the back of property to the, or back of lot to property line, but we actually have 89.9 feet out to that water line. So I just wanted to point that out that, you know, we do have a few areas that are a little bit less than 50 feet, but we've got more space out to that water. Again, what Mr. Righeimer had agreed to at the sketch plan level was an average of 50 feet. So we are now completely exceeding the average. And we do have about 80% of all the lots with 50 feet from back of lot to the property line as a minimum. So we're well beyond that average, and we were happy to be able to make that change. And hopefully you'll feel like it addressed both your concerns and the neighborhoods as well. So I'll leave us back on the overall plan. That's really all that I had to share with you today. The change along Dead Man's Lake and some of those adjustments along the Kitchell Lake frontage to address comments from both the commissioners and the community were really the only changes that we've made. Everything else should look just like the sketch for you. And we do have our whole team on different sections of this meeting today. So depending on what your questions are, we should have somebody available to help answer those questions for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen. Do we want to go now to this to the public, or does any of the council members have a question for Kristen while she's still on here? It doesn't sound. Yeah, Aaron.
I just wanted to thank Kristen for and their team for making some of these changes that we had requested, just to make this a better plan for the town going forward and for the residents in the existing area. The only question I had, and it's probably just more of a confirmation than a question, is that the school site, I know that the school site is a concern of people if a school were not to be built there. But in this agreement that we have with you, Kristen, that site, if it weren't to be developed as a school, would just revert back to some type of natural open space. Is that correct?
That is correct. There is no possible way that some type of different development could happen there. It would require the project team to go back to the sketch plan level and ask for permission for that to happen. So the only two things that can happen on that parcel is either a Poudre School District elementary school site or open space.
Okay.
Yeah, and Aaron, I will tag that answer with note number 7 on the sketch plan actually states that. So there is an actual defined note that if it does not become a school site, it will revert to open space. So there is a physical note on that approved sketch plan that states that as well.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks. I just wanted to be crystal clear on that. I know there are some residents that that was one of their big concerns. So thank you for clearing that up, Kevin, and noting it on the plat. That's it.
I'll jump in with a question. So what is the actual average setback from Kitchell Lake from the homes to the property line?
The average setback would be about 165 feet. Our largest setback area is about 300 feet, and our smallest, I think, came in at 33 or 34. So even if you were to pick a smaller area like in here as more of an average, that's 75 feet. That puts us well above the 50-foot average. What we did was actually try and create a minimum for as many of the lots as possible while still achieving that average, which was our goal for the site.
Okay, and sorry, what was the average number again there, you said?
That average would have been about 165.
Okay, and it'd be even larger if we're talking from the back of the homes to the water's edge.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Half a football field. Okay, Kevin, where would you like to go now? Do we take public, or do you have somebody else that's involved?
I think we're going to public unless, Matt, you wanted to chime in with something.
No, I think that's the right course. Public comment, and then staff has some follow-up after that.
Great.
All right, so this is going to
Melissa?
be just a little bit, I'm sorry, let me jump on video here. I'm going to take the public comment, handling that because I'm running the meeting on the backside here. So if any of the participants would like to speak for public comment, would you please raise your hand? If you're on a phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. We'll just give everybody a second to get that in. And then I'll just remind you that you have 3 minutes to speak to the council about the item. All right, the first person is going to be Craig Corona. And if you wouldn't mind by starting with your full name and address. And you will have to unmute.
Thank you. My name is Craig Corona. My address is 1018 Lauren Lane, Basalt, Colorado 81621. I represent Jerry Kiefer and the Kiefer Family Trusts and the estate of Kent Glover and entities related to the estate. I represent them in water matters and ditch matters. I was co-counsel with the Kiefer and Glover parties in the litigation in February against Saratoga Falls LLC and the developers for the subdivision related to a large lateral ditch that runs through their property and water rights that the Kiefer interests own that supply water to Deadman Lake, which is also known as Page Brothers Reservoir. So I'm here on their behalf. First, we just wanted to say that we appreciate the opportunity to speak to council this evening on behalf of the Kiefer and Glover parties. And especially we appreciate your indulgence and the indulgence of town staff in considering our comments, our written comments that were submitted just yesterday. We apologize for getting those in at the 11th hour. We really appreciate the time and consideration that was given. I'll kind of skip to the end here just to make sure I don't run out of time. Our main ask here is if the town council approves the preliminary plat as proposed, we would request that council impose the 3 conditions that are related to ditches and water rights structures that we understand have been recommended by staff. Those were circulated to us by an email from Matt Blakely this afternoon. If the Kiefer and Glover parties had their preference, we would ask that condition 2 be revised a little bit. Instead of referring to decreed water rights, we would ask that the condition refer to the water to which the down gradient owners are entitled. But if council is not open to revising that condition, the Kiefer and Glover parties find the 3 recommended conditions to be satisfactory. And again, we appreciate staff's work and council's consideration of those. If there are any modifications in the developer's plan to what the court approved during the litigation, the Kiefer and Glover parties are ready and willing to work with the developer to review any of those proposed modifications and negotiate terms that will work for everyone. My clients are not attempting to interfere with this development. Their goal now is merely to ensure that they continue to receive the water to which they are entitled in accordance with the court's order. So if the plans are going to deviate from what the court order was, we're ready to work with the developers, negotiate over it, make sure it works, and get to an agreement. An agreement on that would include the town, since the town owns all of the roads in filing 2, and it looks like we'll own all the roads and public ways in filing 3. And those roads cross the main lateral ditch, which we refer to as the KG lateral. And it looks like one of the roads may cross the seepage area that supplies Dead Man Lake. But we're not certain on that, and we'd take a look at the plans when the more detailed plans come out. So,
Greg, you're a little bit over your 3 minutes, if you wouldn't mind just.
Yeah.
Yep, I can wrap up there. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it, Craig. Let's go to the next one.
David Rao.
David?
You will need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead, David.
So I'm an engineer who was retained by Jerry Kiefer and the estate, as well as the Glover estate. The big thing is really it's just an engineering issue. The court ruled on a very specific set of plans that were provided for piping the ditch, and also ruled based on the sketch plan plat that was referred to earlier. Our concern is that any modifications to the KG lateral supply water in the historic quantities that it did. There may be some changes. We just want to make sure that it continues to operate satisfactorily. And I think the court was quite clear on the fact that the page seep area is fragile and can't be infringed upon. And the sketch plan that was presented to the court, which was the original sketch plan submitted to the town, showed a certain geometry. The plat that's shown now is different in some significant ways as it relates to the page. For example, there are 9 lots shown down by Dead Man that weren't in the original plat. Block 10 wasn't in the original plat, and that encroaches. There's a lot of cut and fill shown in the utility plans within the page. So we just want to make sure that the page continues to operate and that the KG lateral operates.
Okay, David, thank you. Any questions for David? Let's go to our next one, Brian.
Those were the only people that I had raise their hand. I think we'll give one last call for anybody else who had a public comment. And again, if you're on a dial-in number, you can press *9 to raise your hand. I don't see any additional hands, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, let's now go back to staff, and I think staff's going to explain a little bit about what transpired after receiving the letter from Mr. Corona and some earlier conversations and how we arrived at 3 conditions that we might want to consider as the council to protect and have us comply with the ruling of the court on the water case and to protect Timnath going forward. So go ahead. Who's going to take that? Matt, are you going to take that?
I'll start off, but Mayor Pro Tem, if you don't mind, I think that I'll let the applicant respond to a couple of those, just because I know that their attorney is on as well, and I think he might be able to speak a little better to a couple of things that were raised. And then I think we'll circle back and I'll review those conditions that we have.
Great.
And Matt, one thing Brian's going to chime in, because Jerry Kiefer he's with Dave Rao, and he would like to speak on public comment.
Let's go ahead and take Mr. Kiefer, so we're still in the same area
Hello.
here.
Okay, go ahead and speak now.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I'm here to talk to you about this. My father and I were in the construction business most of our lives, so we're not against development. That's how we earned our living. We also like to participate in these types of things because our future on the farm is we want to keep farming. And so we want to make sure that we're going to get the water that we've gotten since the early 70s through the lateral. And then when we got the Page Brothers for the additional water, that we're able to maintain these water rights because we anticipate farming in our future.
Well, thank you. That's good. Okay, Matt, do we want to bring up a spokesman for the developer?
I'll turn it over to Kristen's team. If Steve Sims or someone else from their team would like to speak to any of that, that'd be.
Yeah, I believe Mr. Sims is on the call and Mr. Righeimer is as well.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Steve Sims. I'm an attorney for Saratoga. I'm also authorized to speak on behalf of the Kitchell Land Development Company. I primarily support what staff is doing in the three conditions. There is some conflict about the second term. As to that second term that Mr. Corona talked about, we think it makes a lot more sense to just follow and enter a term that says that we should be consistent with the judge's ruling in 18 CW 3166. The judge heard 7 days of testimony on all these issues that were raised in this case, and basically all the issues that were raised in Mr. Corona and Mr. Rao's comments, and issued an extensive ruling on that. And we think that that speaks the best as to how to protect water rights. He found that this development would not injure any water rights by Mr. Kiefer or Mr. Glover. And we think that that's the best way to do it, as opposed to attempting to shortcut or interpret or paraphrase what one or more parties thinks that actually happened. So we would support just that very simplistic effort. The other two conditions I think are okay. What the applicant really wants to do, though, is also add this extra condition, an extra condition that because there's some doubt as to whether the plans will be consistent with what the court has ruled, we will provide an engineering opinion that compares the actual plans that are submitted as part of the final plat and essentially say this is or is not consistent with what the court did. Mr. Corona said in the event that there's a change that they should be able to, that we should have to negotiate with the Kiefer Glover interests. We don't plan on making any changes. And there's a court process that we would probably have to follow to do that anyway. But we think that as long as we say we're acting consistently, we think that we can avoid all the problems. We think it's a good idea to do the indemnification that's proposed. We understand how expensive these things can be when you're drug into them. We don't think that there's a chance that you would be subject to liability, but we're certainly willing to backstop you on that. I think the way that we phrased it in our letter, because we also did a letter, and Matt, you may not have gotten that since it was really late in the game, but we would like our response letter to Mr. Corona's to be admitted into the administrative record, just so we have something that kind of supports what I'm saying. But we really think at that point that the engineering and the legal provisions that were fought out in the court is the best way to handle these issues. I didn't have any other, there's one other thing that Mr. Rao said that that was somewhat I disagree with. And he said that the court was clear that the page seep couldn't be, that it's fragile and it couldn't be impacted, I think was his word. The court didn't really say that. And in my response letter, I provide exactly what the court said on that issue. The court recognizes that there is the Page Brothers ditch number 1 is a drain that runs through the middle of the page seep. And that is something that there's never been a plan ever by applicants to do anything to that. We will be crossing that just like it's being crossed now by Prospect Road. And when Prospect Road is moved, it will continue to be crossed, but in exactly the same way. Nothing's going to change. There will be a
Okay. Well, that's good, Stephen. We appreciate it, and we will if you give Melissa a copy of that letter, which she probably already has, or Wes, they'll make sure that it goes into the folder for the meeting. That'd be good.
Thank you. I see Matt shaking his head like he has the letter.
Yeah.
That's fine then. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Questions if you have any.
Okay, Matt.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. A couple of things. First, I do have the letter from Mr. Sims, and I believe it was actually routed to Wes and Melissa, so it will, and unfortunately, we did receive it pretty late in the game, so you, the council, don't have the benefit of seeing that, but we will circulate it to you. It's somewhat, it'll be a part of the record, but however, we don't need to go into the details of it in this discussion. I do want to clear up a couple of things just so that you guys are on the same page. The term page seep may be new to you in terms of what it is. It on the sketch plan and on the preliminary plat, it's that wetland area. It's the most easily way to define where that is it's that wetland area that kind of runs between the Kitchell Lake and Dead Man Lake. And Page Brothers Reservoir, I think, is synonymous with Dead Man Lake. So you guys are understanding the implications of some of these conversations relative to that page seep. Secondly, I do want to go through the conditions that staff, since we've received a couple of letters and had some communication with the adjacent property owners attorney today, as well as communication with the town's legal counsel and with the applicant's legal counsel. Staff have put together a series of conditions that I did forward to you that actually are a little different than what Mr. Corona was referring to. So that may be a little bit of confusion as to when he was suggesting this number 2 condition revision. So he's referring to a previous version of this. So what I'd like to do is just clear this all up by laying out those 3 conditions that we as staff are prepared to present. And I have shared these with Mr. Sims and and I believe, and after these conditions come forward, probably should go back to the applicant and ask them if they're comfortable with those, so that the application can, if you so choose, to move this forward, you can get their confirmation that they're okay with those conditions being imposed. I'll read them so that they're on the record, but I did circulate them to you, and the version that I'm going to read is exactly what you have in front of you. So if you haven't received them, you'll hear them now. So regarding the Saratoga Falls third filing preliminary plat conditions of approval for council's consideration, the following. Number 1, that the developer of the project indemnify, defend, and hold harmless the town of Timnath from any and all claims, demands, liabilities, arbitrations, awards, judgments, or other obligations that may be against the town in connection with, arising out of, or relating to the town's approval of this application. Condition 2, that the developer adhere to all court orders consistent with ruling 18 CW 3166 issued by Water Judge James Department, Water Division Number 1, State of Colorado District Court, Weld County, dated February 4th, 2020, and any appeals. Condition number 3, that the developer provide an engineering opinion that the final plat design and drawings are consistent with the rulings in 18 CW 3166. Those conditions, in addition to the ones that were in the staff report, are what staff is recommending going forward. The two that were in the staff report, one was is our usual and customary language that talks about minor non-substantive cleanup items, related items that we typically need to do as these things move forward. There's little things that we run up against that we just hadn't caught or needed to get cleaned up. The second one is the moving of the north-south road 20 feet to the west. So that that adjustment to that road in the preliminary plat that you see in front of you is 20 feet closer to the reservoir. The condition that we're asking you to consider is that they move it 20 feet to the west, further away from Kitchell Lake, with their final plat drawings. So with that, I will take any questions, clarifications, and I may look to Robert Rogers for assistance on this, or other engineering assistance if we have some technical questions. And then I will, I think the prudent thing to do is to refer to the applicant, the developer, or the developer's representative to see if those conditions are palatable to them. So, no questions?
Is Kristen still on there? Or Mr. Sims?
There we go.
Yes, Steve Sims again. I just talked to Jim on the phone. He agrees that these three conditions that you've mentioned are acceptable. I just note one little mistake. You said that the ruling of the court was February 4, 2020. It was actually March 24, 2020. Our trial started on February 10th.
Okay, apologize. I was taking it from the document that I had.
It's all right. There's a lot of documents out there.
Yep. So we will correct that date and have that be the appropriate date in the version that is, if this is approved as part of those conditions.
Thank you.
Does any of the council have any other questions on this? Okay. Okay, do we want to go forward with a motion then that would include the three conditions as stated by the staff, with the correction that Mr. Sims added of the correct date be included, and then with the two other issues regarding the boilerplate language for minor adjustments are okay, and the changing of the road 20 feet to the west?
Can I make a comment first there, Rick?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I was watching the neighborhood meeting and the planning commission meeting, and I just wanted to make sure it was clear to any of the public that might be watching this meeting what the average setback from Kitchell Lake was about. There were some that seemed to have the understanding that the town had reduced requirements for setbacks from the lake and whatnot. So I just want to make sure it's clear that, as the applicant mentioned, there's not a code requirement to set homes back from the lake. The developer could have conformed to the code and set homes right against the lake. But it was the discussion of this council to make sure we essentially got some kind of legally binding agreement to have a setback with the average setback. And I just want to also express my appreciation that the developer really tried to go above and beyond the number that we set to try and work with the community. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. It looks like all parties were working together on this one. And I know after talking to his staff this morning, the staff is anxious to work with all parties going forward to keep everybody up to date on exactly what's going on. Okay, can we maybe get a motion?
I'll move. So moved. To approve the resolution with the conditions that the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned.
Correct. So the 3 and then the 2, the boilerplate and the road. And because we're on Zoom, our rule says we have to have a roll call vote. Melissa, if you,
First, Rick,
pardon me?
do you need a second first before we?
Yes, yep.
Okay, I'll second.
Great, thank you. Okay, Melissa, if we could do a roll call vote.
Okay. Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Aye.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Aye.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins.
Aye. Okay, by 4 voting and 1 recused, it's passed. Should we get the mayor back in here somewhere?
Thank you very much.
Enter stage left. All right, thanks, Rick.
Thank
Wes, after I listened to that roll call vote, should we have done a roll call vote on 7A? The Fisher?
I think you're all right because you just held it over.
Okay.
It wasn't real.
Are
The
you
action
right?
was
Is
a
that-
holdover.
Does that sound good to you, Wes? I can't
Wes,
hear
you're on
you.
mute.
You're mute.
You're on mute, Wes. You're on mute, Wes.
Yeah, hey, Robert, I'll defer to you real quick. Do we have an item, or do we need to clean that up or not?
Technically, I think the proper thing to do would be to clean it up. I can't envision. It's so easy to do it. I think
It's so easy to do. Let's just do it and not talk about it. So 7A Resolution 69, Series 2020, resolution to continue this on to January 12th. We had opened it, and then a motion to continue it to January 12th. Melissa, can you do a roll call for that?
Mayor Mark Sukup,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks, Robert and Wes.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the catch.
Yeah. All right, we are on a resolution adopting the Timnath Model Multiple District Service Plan. Robert.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a follow-up from the Metro District Committee that Councilor Hansen headed up, and the recommendations that came back to the council. And the council seemed like they were all very comfortable with all the recommendations. And then there was the one outstanding discussion item, which was the regional improvement mill levy. There was a follow-up council meeting and discussion regarding that item. And coming out of that meeting, we got clear guidance from the council that it was their desire that we remove that concept when we bring back the rest of the revisions to the model service plan. So that's what we have done. But before you is the summary, and I'll go through it here quickly in just a moment. But just to get you oriented and for your reference, there are 2 versions of the model service plan that are in your meeting packet. A clean version, and then behind it is a red line version if you're interested in seeing the exact changes. I'll quickly summarize them. The majority of the changes were regarding the regional improvement mill levy. There's quite a bit of redlining there, but it's all just there to take that concept completely out of the service plan. Then in the category of district fees, there's a provision that gives the district the ability to increase fees on an annual basis. It's a 3% cost of living increase, essentially, or COI increase. Then when you get to the resident control period, if the board votes to roll off the fee cap, the board has the ability to do that without further council approval. Similarly, in the O&M taxes context, once you get to a resident controlled board scenario, if the board votes to roll off the O&M mill levy cap, they have the ability to do that. The next change was in the mill levy imposition term. There was some language added to make it clearer that developer reimbursement obligations such as promissory notes are also forgiven in full after the conclusion of the 40-year mill levy imposition term. And then there was some augmentation in the disclosure section to increase transparency for residents moving into the district and require that the district include in its disclosure estimated property taxes and fees on an annual basis for an average price point home within the district. So those are the changes. We did vet these with Councilor Hanson. I don't know if he had anything to add.
Yeah, I'll just add that I did go over this last week, and in my opinion, the changes do reflect the recommendations of both the Metro District Committee and the Town Council. And I do think the changes are going to be good. It increases resident control, resident protection, as well as hopefully improving some of the information that is disclosed around Metro districts. So in my opinion, this meets all of the concepts that we've previously discussed and agreed upon.
I'll just add a quick comment. Every person that made a comment on the side on this has been nothing but pleased with it. Robert, I think you did a great job drafting up the model agreement there, and Brett, awesome job on your committee. I think they did a great job, and all of them are to be commended in getting to a great result. And I think we now have a cleaner model plan, and I think it's one that was jointly developed by both the residents and the developers, and everyone's in unanimity on it. And so thanks a lot, Brett, for you and your committee. So I would like a motion.
Is there any public to speak on it? Just make sure there's no public to speak.
Brian, is there...
I have one person still in there, a phone caller in. If you would like to speak on this, you can raise your hand by pressing *9, and I can allow you to speak. I don't see the hand's not going up, so I think we're okay.
Mayor, I do have one question about that.
Sure.
So we had talked a little bit about the one metro district that still is in the former agreement with that piece. And we talked about reaching out to them. Do we know what our next steps will be related to that if this passes?
So Brett, can I answer that if you don't mind?
Go for it.
So I did get the opportunity to talk to Dino DiTullio, who is the developer of South Timnath Ranch, which is that first off, he didn't think they had paid anything. He said, if we paid anything, we'll donate it to this town. So he appreciated the fact that we'd cover the legal fees to get their service plan corrected. I think that's what we voted, wasn't it, Brett?
Yeah. Yes. And it should be pretty minimal, the cost associated with that.
So so he was very appreciative of that, and said, you know, if we, the town, have collected some money on it, that he said, figure out a way that I can donate it to him.
Yeah, I don't think we had. I don't think. Okay. Yeah, I can't say for sure, but I don't believe so. I think it was more to change. Was he open to changing his current agreement then to kind of match up with this new one?
Dino was part of Brett's committee, and Brett, I'll let you deal with that question.
He was one of our two developers. He did not raise the issue in the committee, just so that's clear. This was just part of the discussion that was brought up by town staff, and then the rest of the committee took up that question.
But I think
Lisa, but yes, he's definitely on board.
Okay, that was a question.
Yeah. So sorry,
Lisa? Does that sound good, Lisa? Did you get your
Yeah.
question answered?
Well, I think Robert was just going to say something there too.
Go ahead, Robert.
I guess I'm looking for a little more clarity too. I also had a conversation with him, and it sounded, when we left the conversation, he mentioned that he was going to talk to his Metro District attorney and then get back to me on whether they wanted to submit an application. I think the other provision in their service plan that they're interested in changing is availing themselves of the new standard 3% annual increase in fees. So it sounded to me like he was going to circle back with his attorney and they would be submitting a service plan amendment. But that was the last I heard. I just didn't know if anybody had heard anything more recently. This was the day after our last council meeting. And I hadn't heard anything since.
I talked to him on Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And he basically said, whatever you guys want, I'm happy with. I mean, it was the crux of it.
Well, but I think they have to do something on their end
Yeah.
in order for something to happen. So
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's kind of just leave
absolutely.
it in their hands at this point. Then is my guess on this.
I think that's right. And I did get the distinct impression they will be coming back with a service plan amendment, but I have not seen anything. Nothing's been submitted yet.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So could I have a motion for a resolution adopting the Timnath Model Multiple District Service Plan?
So moved.
Second. Let's see, Melissa, I think we have to roll call vote then.
Okay, Mayor Mark Sukup,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Yes.
Great. 7D, resolution number 72, series 2020, a resolution approving Timnath Trail at Riverbend Apartments, Phase 2, development site plan. Kevin Coble.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I'll start this one off so
Sure.
I can.
I'm just
do
reading
this.
what was there.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's totally fine. I wanted to share this again with everyone. You'll probably get tired of this, but I hope that it's helpful. These, give you an idea of where these projects are in the process. This one's a little more simple than the others. It went from an annexation straight to a site plan, which seems like a pretty big jump, but the way that the property was annexed as one property, there was no need to subdivide or dedicate necessarily additional rights of way or anything like that. So it was able to go from an annexation zoning directly to a development site plan. So with that, I will let Kevin go through the complete presentation, but just having that in the back of your mind. So that's where we're at and how we got there.
All right, thank you, Matt. Let me get back to it. Thank you, Mayor. So as you had mentioned, this is the Timnath Trail at Riverbend Phase 2 site plan. Owner is Timnath Trail 2 LLC, represented tonight by Jim Rooney and Isaac Lewis, and the applicant is TB Group. The property is formerly known as the McBride annexation that was approved earlier this year, just to the west of the existing Phase 1 of the apartments highlighted there in blue. The zoning of that property with the annexation was done as R4, which is multifamily residential, which supports the apartment use. The summary of the plan, it's a development site plan proposal for 82 multifamily units on the 4.5 acres of that formerly known as McBride property. The site will contain 3 multiple family buildings with dwelling units ranging from 25 to 30. and is consisting of 1 and 2 bedroom for rent apartments. There are also 4 separate buildings containing garage spaces. The site will also have connectivity to the existing phase 1 from the south and the east. They will be extending with a new drive that I'm kind of highlighting there to the east, and then down on the south side of the property there. The site also includes a fitness center, which is contained within one of the apartment buildings, a community garden, a car wash station, and a playground for residents on this side to go along with the playground that's on the first phase side. Along with that, there are also 2 bike racks with 14 spaces for bicycle parking. And then this proposal also proposes the relocation of the Poudre River Trail to the western edge of the property over what is currently County Road 3F, which will go away with this development. Currently, it runs along the south side of this, or along the east side of this property. And then with this, we will be relocating it to the west side of the property to be a little bit easier for Poudre River Trail users, not having to go through the middle of the apartment complex. Along with that, there is roughly 87,000 square feet of landscaping, which is roughly 44% of the site. Along with that, there is parking. The parking for this is 180 spaces based on 1.5 spaces per 1 bedroom and 1.7 spaces per 2 bedroom unit. The applicant is providing a total of 211 spaces, which includes garage and surface spacing, along with 8 handicap spots. This will, with phase 2 connectivity and from phase 1, there will be 8 spaces removed from phase 1 to allow for that connectivity, but with the applicant providing 31 spaces above what would be required for phase 2, they are actually, in fact, making up for the 18 space reduction that was granted for the first phase to alleviate the parking concerns that are on Stonefly. And that will actually be a net of 5 total spaces for the entire property. If you combine phase 1 and phase 2 together, they will actually be 5 net above what both of those would be required for parking. So they are making up for the reduction of phase 1 significantly with this phase 2. The applicant is also going to be relocating a 8-foot fence from the east side of the property to the west side to allow for some buffering to the existing county resident to the west there. Along with that, they will be providing mature Austrian pines with the landscaping, which will be installed with their mature height of roughly 15 to 20 feet in height to help screen some of the buildings to their property. The applicant is also requesting a 14% height exception to allow for 40 feet in building height from the maximum of 35 feet. This is consistent with the existing architecture of phase 1. So with phase 2, they are planning on just replicating the existing buildings for the buildings in phase 2. There was also a required neighborhood meeting with this property that was held on August 31st with surrounding property residents of the project to gain feedback and concerns on the plan. 3 residents actually attended the meeting, and their concerns were the buffering to the property to the west. That was one of the residents was that county resident, and another was a resident down 3F who had concerns with the parking on Stonefly. Those were the concerns that were brought up during that neighborhood meeting. With that, Planning Commission made a motion to recommend approval of this to council at their meeting on November 17th. Planning Commission did have discussions in regards to the parking, and if the 5 additional, net 5 additional over what would be required was adequate. However, through the discussions amongst the planning commissioners, they found that the increase of the parking for the second phase would help alleviate the parking issues for the entire project, since they are meeting and exceeding what our land use code requirement would be. Staff has reviewed this against the land use code and technical criteria manual and found it to be in compliance. With that, I will turn it over to Isaac with the development team for a brief presentation.
All right, can you hear me? All right, thanks, Kevin. My name is Isaac Lewis. I work with the ownership group for Timnath Trail at Riverbend. We completed that project early in 2020, and it's leased up pretty well. So with all that success, when we had the opportunity to purchase what was the Mike and Beverly McBride property, we jumped on it and thought we could improve on a couple of things with a phase 2. First was the unit mix. We noticed that the bigger units rent a little bit slower, and there's a lot of demand for 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. So we did a whole bunch of 1 and 2 bedrooms, 82 units in the second phase. And then the other thing we wanted to improve on was parking. The phase 1, we had enough parking spaces, but it was a little bit tight. So like Kevin said, we exceeded the requirements by quite a bit for phase 2. You want me to share my screen here?
Yeah, if you have a presentation to show, go ahead and share your screen.
So this is the phase 2 here. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see where our parking spaces required. Its parking spaces provided exceed the required by 31 spaces, as Kevin mentioned. As I mentioned, phase 1, we did have enough parking that it does work, but it is tight, and we wanted to improve on that. Another thing that we wanted to do is focus on where that parking is laid out. We wanted to push as much parking as we could to the south end, because on phase 1, we had more parking on the north end and not quite as much on the south end. And so we thought that some people were parking on Stonefly as convenient. So we wanted to push as much parking south as we could. Phase 2 is a little bit of a V shape. So we pushed our garages to the north and tried to push as much free parking to the south as we could, and create some of that convenience within our site. But this would alleviate any pressure that we had between the two properties as far as parking. Here's a few pictures of phase 1, and phase 2 will be a very similar construction to these. Like I said, just a couple of different unit mix layouts, but the exteriors will have very similar architecture. This is again an overview of phase 1 and phase 2. As Kevin mentioned, there was a variance granted in phase 1 to reduce the amount of parking by 18 spaces. I guess we felt that if we had stuck with the town's required amount of spaces, we probably would have been fine. So we met that and then exceeded that for phase 2. And then these are also included the unit mixes, if that's of interest to anybody. We have 52 1-bedroom units and 30 2-bedroom units, because those were by far the what the market was dictating. So I guess with that, I'd welcome any questions.
Anybody have any questions? And I can't see everybody, so if you do, go ahead and just say your name.
I've got a couple questions there.
Go ahead, Brett.
So I understand that the height allowance, that's consistent with the rest of the development, but can I just ask why you needed a height allowance in the first place?
Sure. So if I switch screens here, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is along where my cursor is here is where your, well, we show 40 feet here, but I believe correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the town's limit is
35 feet.
Yeah.
35.
Yeah. And so the 35 feet doesn't allow for this building type, which is prevalent along the Front Range for 3-story walkout buildings. These roofs, fit in much better with residential style neighborhoods, and they're not quite as boxy as like a flat roof. So they're more attractive, and they are the standard for 3-story walk-up apartments all along the Front Range.
So in your opinion, it's an aesthetic improvement to make this building a little taller than?
Yeah, without question, yes.
Yeah, and Brett, just to give you a little bit of clarification on that, our measurement is to the middle of the peak and the eave is how we do our measurement for that. So from that standpoint, that's where we get that measurement. So the 35 feet would be to the middle of that point, or if it was a flat roof, it would be to the top of that. So that is how we.
So kind of where that line J is coming down, where that intersects the roof.
Line J, yeah. That's essentially where we would measure that to. That's how our land use code measures that. So
Okay.
It's not to the actual peak of the roof; it's to that middle section. That's how we get that measurement.
Okay. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Anybody else? Matt, anything you need to cover? Or Kevin?
No, we're ready to answer any questions the council has. I appreciate the applicant having this at the ready. When we went through the first phase, they did a pretty extensive presentation on this. And if you wanted to get into more detail, I think they probably have more. But you can see there that it had 3 different roof pitches shown, and they vary just slightly from like 38 feet up to 40 feet. But the preferred one was the 612 roof pitch. And I think what was driving most of that had to do with the floor heights. So the interior floor heights you can see in there, typical 9-foot. Those are much, I think that's Isaac, you have to correct me on this, but I think that's much more desirable building height or room space height, which kind of drives everything else up. So, but if we can go into way more detail, I believe they can actually give us a lot more input on that if there's even more questions on it.
I don't think we had any.
Okay.
So going once, going twice. Does anybody have anything else they want to ask? I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the resolution approving the Timna Trail at Riverbend Apartments Phase 2 development site plan.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Melissa, will you do a roll call?
Yes. Mayor Mark Suka,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, 7E, Resolution 73, resolution approving contract for Precision Paving Marketing. Don Toronto.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. If you can refer to the report that I put together on the summary, what this is a paving contract with a vendor that we've used for quite some time. Referred back to 2015, where we RFP'd this service, and they were the low bidder. They've continued to be our provider since then. And just to give you some background, there are very few vendors in Northern Colorado that provide this service. All the major communities like Fort Collins and Loveland have their own striping equipment and facilities. So the equipment that's used for this is pretty unique. And for somebody to provide the comprehensive services that we need for the entire town, it's kind of hard to find. And so this group has been very, let's just say, attentive to us over the years, and we've had a really good relationship with them. So that's what this is all about. We just in a little bit of background also, with the past purchasing agreement, it gave us the ability to continue utilizing vendors that had been positive for the town. And this one had been very positive and very competitive in costs. Any questions?
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
understand what you're saying, Don, and that, but I still think there's a lot of wisdom in looking at RFPs for these kind of things going down the road. And if this vendor still does it, he'd have a leg up. You don't always go with the lowest bid. Sometimes you go with the one that you think is treated us the best. But I would like to see him go RFP if possible.
I have no problem, with doing that for next year. We've got obviously striping needs every year, and
Yep.
we'll RFP it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to reiterate what Rick Collins commented is let's do an RFP for 2021, and I'm fine if it's 3 or 5 years out, but let's get an RFP to make sure that we have looked it out. And if you could direct your staff to check with Nunn and from Severance and all those other little towns that don't have their own line equipment, which I'm sure there is, to see who they've got. And as you said, I think I'd never like to see us just go with the low bidder. You want to go with the one that's provided good service, and past history proves that. So my comment's not to at all change necessarily, but to prove that we are making sure that everybody stays competitive.
I understand, and that's what we will do.
Great.
For 21.
If no one else has a question, Brett's got one.
Go ahead, Brett.
I was going to ask the same question there, so I'll echo Mark and Rick's comments. But one last question I had was, it said the proposal was for slightly more than the budget amount, and so actual work was going to be adjusted to stay at the budget. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
That is correct.
Right. What
will do
work is going to be adjusted? Can you elaborate
Yes.
on what?
Well, I can't tell you exactly, but I will tell you that all the work has been completed, and we are
Okay.
we are at or under budget.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion, we approve resolution number 73,
Okay. Do I have a
precision
second?
pavement marking.
Okay, do I have a
Second.
Second.
Okay. Melissa, will you do a roll call?
Mayor Mark Sukup,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. 7F, Resolution 74, Series 2020, resolution authorizing the Public Works Director to sign the purchase proposal for a new plow truck. Don, you again.
Yes, sir. Okay, again, I'll reference the report that's in your packet. This is for a new snowplow truck. I think at least Aaron and Rick were, I think, around when we purchased the last new one. We've got 2 other trucks which are aging, and to stay up with the requirements that we have, this is a truck that the Public Works Department sorely needs. Anyhow, back in when we did the last purchase of the truck, it was O.J. Watson, and as you can see, they have a master service agreement with the city and county of Denver. we constantly kind of test these numbers with other suppliers and other vendors. And these numbers have come up very, very competitive, all of the time. One of the other things that we're trying to accomplish here is keeping these trucks to be similar in the manufacture and parts and everything, because it makes it very, very much easier for us to continue servicing these things with trucks that have the same parts and the same styles. It's also similar for driving conditions and things for our staff, so that we're creating an inventory of let's just say vehicles that are similar in driving and similar operating conditions. Anyhow, after saying all that, this truck is within little less than $1,000 of what we paid for the other truck back 2 years ago. So it's if you look at these trucks, they start with a basic truck, and then they add all the additional components of it to that chassis, so to speak. So if you look at the cost of the chassis, which is the basic vehicle, the one that we're getting now, or we want to get, is less than $1,000 different than the same one that we bought 2 years ago. So that's a 2019. We now have a 2021 that's $980 more. That increase seems very, very reasonable to me and us. And so that's what we're proposing. Second, we're getting a little less, let's say, bells and whistles on this one than we did the other. We found things that we don't need. And so all in all, this truck is $22,500 less than the same truck that we bought, basically the same truck that we bought 2 years ago. In addition to that, the new purchasing criteria that we have basically allows us to piggyback on other communities or other governmental entities purchasing. And just to read what it is: cooperative price agreements or piggybacking on other governmental bidding processes will qualify as meeting the requirements of a formal public bidding process. And so I'll direct you to O.J. Watson has a existing master supplier contract with the city and county of Denver. We are getting exactly the same numbers for this vehicle that they're giving to the city and county of Denver, who obviously purchases significantly more vehicles than we do. So with that, what I'm asking for is the authority to sign this purchase agreement. No money exchanges hands in 2020, and we have to get the vehicle in process to be built, and then we will pay for it in 21. Questions?
So I'm going to add a couple comments you, I, and Wes had in our pre-agenda meeting to go through. And my concern, as you know, was that we didn't have an RFP. And your comment back was two things. One, we're getting this cheaper, and I think you didn't know the number at the time, and you just said $22,000 cheaper than what that truck 2 years ago was. And the second thing was that there's a timing issue in that this truck will take 10 to 11 months to construct, 10 months. And so if we went out to an RFP, by the time we got the RFP back, it'll be February or March, and we'll really lose next snow season or a big chunk of snow season without it. Correct?
You're correct.
Okay, I'm just giving information to everybody so you know some of the thoughts that were behind that and going along. And thanks for providing the info on the old truck, Don.
You're welcome. Rick?
Yeah, I have a
Rick,
question.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I have a question. That you put that the purchase price is already built into the 2021 budget. Is that built in as to pay for it all at once, or is that for payments?
No, pay for it all at once.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I can see you all now. Doesn't look like it. So, let's see, could I have a motion to a resolution awarding, a resolution authorizing Public Works Director to sign and the purchase proposal for the new plow truck that's attached to this report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Melissa, will you do a roll call?
Yes. Mayor Mark Sukup,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. 7G, Resolution 75, resolution awarding the construction of the Timnath Public Works building expansion and authorizing project expenses. Brian Williamson.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Oh, I just lost my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
see it.
Perfect. So this is the building expansion that we've been working on for probably the better part of a year for the Public Works facility. It's kind of gone through a couple of fits and starts, but I think we've kind of ended up in a very strong position for it. I'm zoomed in here a little bit on the model that you can see. So this is the existing Public Works facility here with the two existing bay doors there. And then what we're adding is this piece right behind it. It's offset by about 30 feet from the building, and that has to do with kind of the turning movements around the site. We also think that that's going to give us a nice big apron in front of those existing bay doors, and then a smaller apron kind of in front of the new bay doors that will be very useful for the Public Works operations. So what this includes is a couple of a wash bay, additional vehicle storage, and I'm going to get to a plan in here. So here you can see the existing building is over here on the left, and these are the two new bays. This is the wash bay with the elevated catwalk, so they'll be able to spray all the salt and junk that comes off the big plow trucks and make sure that we're able to preserve the life of those trucks. Then an additional garage storage bay over here.
Hey, Brian, while you're on that, I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry.
Sure.
Will you be cleaning the police cars too there?
I don't think this is going to be, I mean, it's a Public Works facility, but I don't think it would be limited solely to Public Works vehicles. I think that's probably going to be a policy decision, but I'll let Don maybe weigh in on that.
Yeah, we had, honestly, Mayor, we have not considered or thought about that. I mean, I know Terry's on this call or in this meeting. Maybe he can weigh in. He and I have not discussed that at all. I think it's clearly an option, but I also think there are probably better options for cleaning the vehicles than our wash bay that's designed for larger trucks. But I'm open to anything.
No, I'm asking. I'm not saying.
I think we
Terry, you want to pipe in?
Well, Mayor and Council, it's certainly it's self-service kind of environment, so we're certainly not opposed to it. It would save some money because typically we wash our cars when we fuel them up at car washes that are attached to gas stations. So it could be a little bit of a cost savings if we would be able to utilize Public Works facility from time to time.
You think you can do that, Don?
Sure, absolutely. It's just a scheduling situation and a little bit of training. That's all it needs.
Because washing,
Well,
you're only going to
this-
do a little bit.
This is Rick, and you might be able to put on the east side of that building a thing like we do down at the cart barn here, where you've got the sprayer outside where they could pull up and not be inside the bays, but right outside during the summer.
Well, we could, and that absolutely is something that could potentially happen. But right now, all that stuff to the west or east is basically gravel. But we want to do something different with that, which Brian will get to in a moment.
You're jumping ahead, Don.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that, Brian.
That is okay.
But Rick, that was just there was a segue I couldn't not hit. So.
I know.
You got it.
We did produce a set of documents for this, including a contract, and publicly bid them on BidNet Direct, which is the town's bidding site. It's a strictly municipal bidding site. The town did receive 12 bids for that, and the list of bids is in your packet, and I have it here if anybody had any questions about it. But we did get a quite a significant range from $830,000 at the high end to $619,000 at the low end. There was initially some concerns with the design team and kind of the project management team about the disparity in that. And so we did spend several hours sitting down with the low bidder and making sure that we went through the plans. They had everything that was going to be required for the project included in there, and they had it all in there. So also the architect for the project, Sean Moscrip at ALM2S, has experience with this contractor as well, and he spoke very highly of them. So we feel like he's coming very highly recommended, and he was the low bidder. I think we've kind of assuaged all of our concerns that we had about the disparity in the numbers.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, Council, we were very happy with the number of bids we got, the quality of the contractors that proposed, and obviously the numbers. The number is the low bidder is noticeably under where we thought this was going to be. We think that this was somewhat a function of when and how we bid it, meaning that we bid it at the end of 2020, and this project will not start until, and it is March or April next year, Brian?
April. They'll start construction on site.
Yeah, on site. And so there may be a few things that start to happen in terms of the contractor giving us shop drawings and things to approve, so materials and things can be purchased and get ahead of the game. But anyhow, I think the takeaway on this is that getting these things bid early and giving contractors the ability to get a book of work out in front of them. We had contractors that I never would have thought would have bid on a project less than $1 million. We had, I don't have the list in front. Yeah, there you go. Where's the list? There.
He got it.
So,
he's got it up, Don.
Perfect. I mean, A&P, Adolph Peterson, Phipps, these are huge contractors that I would have never expected them to throw a bid at this size of project. And they did, and they were very competitive. So this environment's changing.
Hey, Don, when you were first sort of throwing, spitballs at the wall on what you thought the cost was and stuff like that last year, I think there was some discussion of getting this done even in 2020. My recollection was you were thinking it was going to come in between 950 and $1 million.
Yep, and maybe a little over $1 million. If you remember the budget, we budgeted 1.1.
1.1.
That's actually what I did remember, but I thought, well, maybe I'm remembering too high. So I did remember. I think it was like 1,115,000 actually.
This is about $250,000 less than what had been budgeted.
Yeah.
What this cost is.
Yep. 1.14 was what we had in the preliminary budget for 2021, and so I'll segue into Don's topic now, the overall project budget. So what we have is the commercial contract with Newmark Commercial for the bid documents, which is $620,000. We need to do some materials testing on that. That's kind of the geotech reports. They take samples on the concrete and make sure that everything meets all the requirements. We think that there's probably going to be some rehab required on our existing sand oil separator. It's challenging to get in there and explore that unless you're kind of really getting into it. So this is the perfect opportunity for us to explore that. And we think there's probably going to be a little bit of rehab on that. Because we have a little bit of additional funds, we would like to add some of the undercarriage equipment, which will help clean the bottom of the trucks where you see a lot of the corrosion from the salt.
Easier.
Easier, yeah. Instead of what we had in the base bid was the guys would have to be, kind of on their knees with the spray gun getting down under there. This is a cart that will roll under the truck and get a nice even spray on the chassis. There will be CA for both the architect and the project management team. And then we want to look at some additional site paving. That site paving number is a pretty big number, and you can see that we've got an asterisk next to it that's going to be subject to additional council approval. What we're planning on doing is evaluating the probably two different types of materials, probably some asphalt, some concrete, or maybe all concrete out there. The concrete numbers right now are coming in pretty competitive to some of the asphalt. And then we'll get a couple of bids on that through probably our general contractor, Newmark Commercial, so that we can roll it into the same project and it can happen with the existing scope of work. There's already a fair amount of site concrete out there, replacing the aprons, putting the new aprons in, and then connecting to the existing salt building. So we want to make sure that we don't disjoint and have two separate contractors out there doing work either at the same time or in sequence, where the second contractor is damaging some of the first contractor's work. It just makes a much cleaner project. But what we'll do is we'll get those bids. We'll have at least 3 numbers from different vendors, and then we'll bring that back to the council before we proceed with any of that work. We have a small bit of 5% on the construction cost contingencies, and that brings us to our overall project budget of $900,000.
Brian, this is Rick. I would just highly recommend we focus more on concrete than asphalt.
I agree.
We're with you, Rick. We're just gonna look at the alternatives so we understand the difference in the costs.
And maybe bring us to that so that everyone will feel comfortable with that too, Don and Brian.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do agree with Rick.
You know, I think, oh, go ahead.
So I think we're set. I'll make a quick comment and ask for questions. Brian and Don, awesome job on doing an RFP here. You know, it came in a lot less than what I think we all thought. For that, it looks like you got the ability maybe to pave this whole site instead of having a bunch of gravel all around it. And that makes tons of sense to me. And so I'm real pleased. And the way I understand it, make sure we're all in the same boat, is what we'll be doing is approving the, is it Newmark? Help me with their name.
Yeah, Newmark.
Newmark's contract, along with these minor items of 10, 15, 6, and 35. And then you will be coming back to us with a recommendation and after you've done some RFPs for the additional site paving or cement work.
Yes, you'll be authorizing the $720,000, which would be the total minus the $180,000.
Yeah. So good job. Thank you very much for doing a good RFP and getting a good result. And I'm glad you're happy with who you chose too. Any other questions to Don and Brian from the council? Okay. Could I have a motion to approve awarding the construction of the Timnath Public Works Building expansion and authorizing project expenses totaling $720,000?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, all those in
Nope,
favor?
got to do a roll call.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Roll call, please, Melissa.
Mayor Mark Sukup,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for the good work, both Brian and Don and whoever else in your team was involved in that. Resolution number 76, series 2020, a resolution approving manager employment contract. I'm going to make a couple comments, and then Robert, I'll have you probably make some more concrete comments and stuff. But where we had left it off is we did give a offer of a contract to Aaron Adams, and so I think you sort of had me clean up the minutia of it, and so Audrey prepped up a great contract, sent it to Aaron. Unlike our predecessor choice. It came back with no changes, no red lines. He signed it on Monday after receiving it on Friday. And I've had the opportunity to talk to him a couple times. Very nice young man. I mean, he couldn't be more grateful. You know, I explained to him how we came to some of the numbers, and he was very, very grateful on the planning and the thinking that we had behind that. And couldn't have been more pleased about it. So he went ahead and signed it before, and the question he had to me is, I don't want to sign it and be presumptuous. I said, no, I think I'd take it as you signing it shows that you've got good faith in the follow through of the council. And so just so you know where he is thinking, if anybody thought that. So basically he approved everything that we put on the offer sheet, and Audrey drafted in the agreement, and you guys saw that in the packet. Other sort of minutiae with that, he plans on being here January 11th. It might be the 18th, but January 11th or 18th. I asked him actually on a I'm just sitting there trying to make sure I've got the series of events right. So I asked him what he'd like to do. Would he like Wes to carry over, and basically town manager, because it's not a personal thing at all. Or would he like to sit there and start the day after, or would he like to? And I said, I'd like to know what you want so that we know what to ask of Wes. And he said, you know, Wes I'm sure is going to help me well, and I have no concern about that. But he said, you know, once you sort of got the ball, you want to dribble it. And he said, I just as soon have a little bit of a space before the prior town manager. So his preference would be that that he starts the 11th or the 18th, and that we continue on with the contract with Wes until December 31st. So that was his suggestion and what he wished us to do. We can do whatever we want, but that's what he wished us to do. Wes, I'd like to December 8th show our gratitude to you. So I'm not ignoring you here at this point, but I am going to delay that until the 8th, if that's okay with you. So I think at this point, Robert, do you want to make any comments on the contract or anything like that?
I think we've got the key points pretty well covered, but just for any members of the public that are tuning in that don't have the meeting packet in front of them, the gross salary would be $160,000 a year. Insurance, retirement benefits, and other benefits would be standard benefits per the employee handbook. There'd be a budget of up to $10,000 for moving expense reimbursements, standard reimbursement, IRS reimbursement rate for mileage on his personal vehicle during town business. The town would cover customary professional association and education fees and dues. And then the one other item is this Timnath residency incentive, the $40,000 forgivable loan, assuming that he purchases a house within the corporate limits of Timnath, and then that loan is forgiven at a rate of $8,000 a year for each year of services rendered, forgiven in full after 5 years. The contract would be an at-will contract, auto renewing annually, subject to either for cause or not for cause termination rights of the town. And we mentioned this in the staff report, but just for the benefit of any public tuning in, this is a culmination of a pretty lengthy process with the engagement by the town of a national recruiting firm and some significant vetting of potential applicants and several rounds of interviews with staff and with the council.
Great. Thanks, Robert. Anything else, Robert?
Nope.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm going to make a resolution because Robert helped me draft this up. So I'd like to move to approve Resolution 76, Series 2020, and to direct staff to provide notice of the town's intent not to extend the well consulting contract past December 31st, 2020. So I made that
Second.
motion. Do I have a second? Okay. Melissa, will you do a roll call vote?
Yes. Mayor Mark Sukup,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Aaron.
Yes.
oh, sorry,
Sorry, you didn't hear me the first time.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Yes.
I saw your eyes were open, so you're safe, Aaron. All right. Is there any other town business or anything? The one thing is, if you have any questions, and I think it makes sense, but I don't know if we need to discuss this or not. So we might have anywhere from a 4-day to an 18-day gap between Wes and Aaron. I know in the past when we've had gaps, Melissa has taken over for the town manager duties. Mainly, she's the one who preps up the initial agenda and stuff. And so is everybody good with that? Okay. Okay. So I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
You guys just can't leave, huh?
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Melissa, will you do a roll call?
Mayor Mark Sukup,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Yes.
Great. Good meeting, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.